Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I'd like to welcome you to call the order of the Everett City Council meeting, November 12th, 2025. For information for our council meetings and how to participate, please visit everettwa.gov/citycouncil. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin,
Excused?
Councilmember Bader.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely. Here. Councilmember Fosse.
Here.
Councilmember Tui.
Here.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yeah, here.
President Schwab.
Here. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Ryan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand if you're able. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Fosse to read the land acknowledgement.
The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Hopes people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. So at this time, we'll go to old business. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes for November 5th, 2025?
Councilmember Bader so moves.
Councilmember Ryan seconds.
Motion and seconds been made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Okay, moving to public comments, which includes written comment acknowledgement. Under our rules, written comments shall be considered in the same manner as oral comments. Persons submitting comments must provide their name and city of residence to make part of the official council record. Good evening, Angie. Do we have any written comments or public comments today?
Good evening, President Schwab. We have a written comment that we received from John Martin regarding the outdoor event center, and that was provided to council, legal, city clerk, and administration to be part of the record. And I also have him here online to participate in public comment. John, are you able to turn on your camera and unmute? Okay, if you could please state your full name, city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak once you see the timer on the screen. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, John Martin, Mount Lake Terrace, Washington.
Go ahead.
My name is John, and it's time for the frog report. As you know, I've been a frog for over 60 million years. 60 million years ago, we had something called the Messianic Legislative Bullfrog Council. And when the council spoke, regular frogs would say, "Hey, listen, that's a bullfrog." And eventually the council tried to follow something called Project Frog Pond in secret. Some of the regular frogs found out, and that was very worrisome to the frogs. Project Frog Pond said some frog council members were included and other frog council members were not included. Regular frogs wondered, why are some frog council members more privileged than others? That's bullfrog. And then the council took money from tadpoles, some called them children, and gave the money to the Messianic Legislative Bullfrog, or as we regular frogs call it, the MLB. When the regular frogs heard that the council was taking money from tadpoles and giving it to the MLB, they turned and looked at each other, and then turned again and looked at the council and said, "That's bull frog." My name's John, and that's the frog report.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments.
We'll move on to council comments. We'll begin with Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. I do have one report this week. Puget Sound Regional Council Growth Management met last week, and a couple of things to note here. Puget Sound Regional Council is redesignating centers. Centers are different kinds. There are different kinds of centers: regional metro growth, regional urban, countywide, neighborhood. We might have thought of some of them as downtowns in the past, but they have some aspects of downtown. Anyhow, downtown Everett is a regional metro growth center, and the center designation can matter as funds are allocated from PSRC out to municipalities. So redesignation that they're working on can result in either confirming the present status or reassigning status. PSRC reviews the performance of the center, meaning do they meet the criteria for the level of the center, whether regional metro growth, regional urban, et cetera. At the meeting last week, they looked at Seattle, Tacoma, and Everett regional metro growth centers. Those are the top of the list. Everett's downtown density at 31 people per acre is well below the density target of 71. So that was noted, though the 31 people per acre is two people more per acre dense than we were in 2010. So we're going in the right direction, at least. We met the other criteria that our size is somewhat larger than the compactness goal they have for centers. The PSRC is recommending, though, that downtown Everett be redesignated as a metro growth center. Though they're obviously hoping our downtown will continue to become more dense. Obviously, I think the construction we see around downtown means we're headed in the right direction. The other significant agenda item was a 2025 housing monitoring update. I think much of this information I've shared before, but notably, the income required for a typically priced home in the region has skyrocketed since 2021, when it was near 100,000, and now that is 150,000 for the annual income needed to be able to afford the typically priced home. Rents have jumped significantly, of course, as well as we know. It's now 2 times more expensive, though it's 2 times more expensive to buy than to rent, which is a significant increase since the 20 teens, when it was much closer in terms of cost. One bright spot they noted is that access to emergency housing and permanent supportive housing has expanded across the region, though mostly that is led by King County, with Kitsap, Pearson, Snohomish following behind them. Since the 2000s, ownership housing production has dropped significantly, and that which is produced is dominated by larger houses. Interestingly, through the 2000s, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom houses had made up the majority of ownership housing being built. Now it's 4 bedrooms and larger. In rental housing production is exactly the opposite. Where now studio and 1 bedroom units now make up over half the units being built, where before the 2010s, again, it was the opposite, where it was 2 and 3 bedroom units were the majority. And those studio and 1 bedroom rentals are the only housing sector where production is growing right now. If you're interested in more detail and you'd like to see the PowerPoint presentation, they're online at the PSRC website in the Growth Management Policy Board section. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thank you. I just want to wish everybody, I hope you had a wonderful Veterans Day, and wanted to give a special happy Veterans Day to my favorite veteran, my spouse, who served 19 years in the military. Also wanted to let folks know that this upcoming Monday, there was a change in schedule for the Port Gardner Neighborhood Association meeting. They'll be meeting this upcoming Monday at the Community Resource Center at Everett Public Schools starting at 7 p.m. And also next Monday at 7 p.m. is the Lowell Neighborhood Association meeting at their usual place at the church on, Main and 2nd. So I hope to see it at either of those meetings. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogely.
Good evening, every person. Earlier this evening, we had the Parks and Built Environment Council Committee, and it was super duper short. It was almost over within 5 minutes, but I made sure we got at least 30 minutes out of everybody. So you can go to YouTube and watch it. And it was mainly the manufactured home zone ordinance update that is moving forward. And you'll be able to get more information from the planning commission. Sorry, almost forgot what they were called. They're going to be taking a look at it and diving deep, and then it's going to be coming back to council in January. So look forward to that. And That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fosse.
Thanks. So I learned something interesting this last Saturday. It was 115 years ago that day that women of Washington State won back their right to vote. And November 8th, 1910, the state constitution was permanently amended to grant women the right to vote. Women had that right taken away when the territorial Supreme Court overturned a suffrage law in 1888. And Washington became the 5th state to permanently enact women's suffrage in the 20th century. So that was kind of interesting to learn about that. The Boys and Girls Club had a ribbon cutting recently for their kitchen. And I was able to attend that. I know Councilmember Zerlingo was there, along with a variety of other local elected officials to celebrate. It's such an amazing resource that they provide for children in our community. And it was just such a joy to be there.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
No report tonight.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, just two things, and interestingly enough, this week they're both related to kids. One of them was last Thursday. I attended the annual fundraising lunch for Dawson Place Child Advocacy Center that was named for former Snohomish County Prosecutor Seth Dawson, who got the balls rolling on that. It's a nonprofit providing services, safety, justice, and healing for victims of child physical and sexual abuse, assault, and neglect. They serve something over 1,000 kids per year with their service center here in Everett. One of the most important things they do is navigate all the different elements of help for the victims. They connect with medical providers, therapists, counselors, therapy dogs, prosecutors, investigators, and law enforcement. And I know our police department was very well represented there. I got a great chance to see them there as well. They collect the different services and providers in one location. And importantly, this helps the system work as it should, facilitating healing and support and minimizing ongoing trauma to the kids involved. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, then please do check that out. That's Dawson Place here in Everett. And as Councilmember Fosse said, several of us were at a ribbon cutting for a new commercial kitchen at the Everett Boys and Girls Club in North Everett. Just a few other things about that. I took a special interest in that because it's one of 4 Boys and Girls Clubs here in Everett, 2 of which are in my district. And I last year directed some of my council member American Rescue Plan funds to all 4 of the Boys and Girls Clubs here in Everett. And I want to say I was really impressed by the staff, the activities and facilities there. Teenagers do some of the staffing as well, and how much they serve a population that, especially in that area, has fewer resources than they need. And I was particularly gratified to see what I guess maybe most of us would call normal child and adolescent activity, athletics, crafts, games, learning and exploring, kids in person with each other, working out static among themselves about things like games rules, and doing it all on their own in person without the need for the close adult supervision. So as with Dawson Place, these are the kind of things where I place special importance, because the benefits are provided during critical formative years for these kids, and the effects multiply in a positive way for the rest of these kids' lives. So once again, the great work that's being done by both these organizations, if you're interested in that kind of thing, I would definitely encourage your support. That's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. How about, is there an administrative report today?
Just a note that the applications for boards and commissions, we reopened them, so they're open for a couple more days Friday this week. You can find the application at everettwa.gov/boards. It says they're still open. It doesn't list the ones that are open at this very moment, but feel free to check the other column when you're applying and make note of it in one of the questions, which boards you're interested in. And then the charter review committee for the city is also open until the beginning of December. So a little more time on that one, but everything is available still too. That's it.
Okay, how about from our city attorney, David Hall?
No report, no executive session.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we are moving to our consent items. We have 7 consent items on the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Councilmember Bader, so moves.
Second the motion?
Motion and second's been made. Clerk, please take the roll on consent items 1 through 7.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Okay, now we'll move to item number 8, which is a proposed action item. And it's been read in the record, and the public hearing is now open, or I guess it was open November 5th and will remain open until November 19th. Angie, are there any members, any from the public that wish to speak on item number 8?
No, there's not.
Okay, is there any comments or questions from council? Okay, so we'll move to item number 9. It's been read in the record. Are there public meeting is still, public time is still open? And Angie, is there anyone here to speak on number 9?
No, there's not.
Okay, is there any council comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move to number 10. Council Bill 2510-60 to stay in kind of up. Second reading, are there any members from the public that wish to speak on item 10?
No, there's not.
Okay, are there any questions from item 10? Okay, Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, I do. I want to first thank Jennifer for getting back to me on those questions from last week. Really happy to see about the red light cameras, that the labor allocation model that we have set up so that we can adjust to, when because they're supposed to, fall off the number of citations. So that's great that we're monitoring that so we can decline or add staff as needed. So I really appreciate that. But I do have a question on the jail fees, which was super to see that we're down 36% over last year, which is amazing. And I know that it's probably the chief can probably talk to that, but I would assume that's from the flock cameras and our diversion programs and things like that, which is really, really exciting. My question is, in the budget for 2026, it's the same amount as in 2025. So, 36% of that is a little over $2 million. So my question is, I know we would never want to bring it back to the bare minimum, but is that too big of a buffer for the budget with all the other cuts that we've made and funds that we've taken out of COVID relief? So I don't know what the answer is on that, but I'm just asking that if I can have a little more clarification. And maybe we think hopefully it's a trend that will continue or at least level off. So I don't know if Mike has an answer or Jennifer.
Well,
Thank you.
just as we decide who's going to answer, I'm joined up here by Senior Executive Director Lori Cummings and then Mike Bailey, who council is familiar with from working with him as a consultant on finance issues over the last year or so. And as you know, but others might not, but as you know, and the staff is aware, our finance director has taken an opportunity for another position and has left the city. But we had Mike, kind of there on hand. You guys had worked with them. He's pretty familiar with the city. He used to work here. So we're excited to have him as an interim finance director. And so he's here tonight, and so he'll be able to help answer questions and be around a little bit more moving forward too.
Okay.
With that, I see Chief DeRusse, he kind of gave me a nod. I don't know if he has thoughts about jail fees, maybe to start off, or if Lori or Mike do.
I don't have a lot of answers for you regarding that in particular. I will say that, yes, we are doing our best to work through diversion programs and considering alternatives to booking. But the costs related to not only the jail, but the hospital bills associated with bookings in jail continue to go up. Is there room there to work? Maybe a little bit, but I'd be very cautious just based on the really good year we had this year about making too many adjustments to that budget.
Okay. All right. I just didn't know if there was a.
Well, I would concur with that. I think that the jail budget has fluctuated from year to year, as we all know, and you may have noticed recently that the county budget, jail costs exceeded their budget by a significant amount. And so we're not certain what that will mean for cities. But we feel like it's better to maintain the budget as it is for 2026 at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, one potential point of educating me anyway, because I know our city attorney, David Hall, had talked about coming concerns about budgets for public defenders. And I don't know whether there is any connection at all between these things. If one of those things ends up a little bit and one of them ends up down a little bit, or surprisingly, I guess I'm wondering if if there is room in that, if it might compensate for other things that we are dreading.
There's not a direct connection, but it is possible in the future as we look how to get some control over our indigent defense budget, which means the amount of money we pay to our indigent defense law firm. We may look for opportunities to divert more defendants and charge fewer crimes. And the fewer crimes we charge, the lower our jail bill is. We're not going to do that at the risk to public safety, but we are looking at opportunities to have fewer actual charges that result in bookings and jail days.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. Lori, I'm not sure this would you'd be able to answer this now or the other department heads that are here, but, as we look at this year's budget, it's, certainly belt tightening still. And I'm thinking what I don't see, and probably the public as well, is what things, even though we're kind of a, status quo budget this year, unlike last year when we had to cut, I imagine there's still some opportunities or things we had to bypass, or maybe other things we still had to cut. And I was wondering, before next week, would it be possible to kind of hear from the department heads or through you or whatever about, where are those things that we had to cut back on this year, even if they're not hugely noticeable like they were last year. So I'd be grateful for that.
Yeah, I'll just cut in here before you answer that. Last meeting was long. We had some big issues involved, and we went through each of the departments and we talked just basic numbers, but we didn't have a lot of discussion on some of the things that we need to fund that we haven't funded. Some of the things I will just say cut that we haven't refunded. So that really hasn't made the conversation yet. And before we approve this budget, I think we need to know, and I think the public needs to hear some of the programs that we are not funding or basically a cut. I mean, I'll just bring up for one example is the pool, right? I mean, we all want to pool up here. We know the costs are involved. We hear a lot from the public. That initiative was basically cut 2 years ago, and we still haven't got to that. I mean, but I know there's a lot of other smaller things in here that we haven't had many discussions publicly about. So how's that for an introduction?
Let me start and give you some high level, and then perhaps there may be some directors who want to add more after tonight as well. But ultimately, a lot of the reductions we made in 2025 and even years prior, as Councilmember Schwab mentioned, were carried over into 2026. And so I think we have to remember how difficult those reductions were as well, with more reductions in 2026. So some examples of what we are still living with in 2026 and will continue to live with until we have a revenue solution. What were reduced last year was our library funding, the parks support positions, and our parks project funding. Citywide labor reductions were very significant. We can get you a number, but I didn't grab the number off the top of my head. But as we all know, through the voluntary separation program and layoffs and a reduction in force, the street overlay project funding was reduced by $1 million. And then our human needs, we've reduced, and again, this year as well, funding to so many nonprofits doing fantastic work in our community that's so needed, and Claire's Place as well, supportive housing. Really, we're up against fewer and fewer options, as you all know. In 2026, we did utilize more one-time unsustainable reductions to balance this year as we continue and hopefully begin more discussions on revenue solutions. I know we're all anxious to do that. We utilized the ARPA dollars, COVID relief fund dollars. They kind of use those terms interchangeably. And really, those are money that we had hoped, I think, at the beginning to be able to reinvest in nonprofits, in our businesses, and fund a lot of the needed services, a lot of our work with the homeless. There was a desire to fund a day shelter, and that is part of the impactful reductions in the 2026 budget. I think for just a minute, and maybe Mike wants to add a little bit about kind of our 6-year forecast too, to remind our community. It was presented in September, but really as we look forward, we've got quite a big challenge to deal with.
Sure, I'll add a couple of comments. Just sitting here looking, there's dozens of places where adjustments were made to this budget in order to balance it before it was presented to you. However, most of those are relatively minor compared to about $5 million worth of one-time monies that were transferred into the general fund to be able to balance the 2026 proposed budget. So the one-time money is gone after 2026. So that'll be presenting itself as a challenge for future years. With respect to the budget, I'm pleased to be able to be back and help the city bridge the gap between your outgoing finance director and the recruitment for her replacement. And so I'm doing that on a day-to-day basis, but at the same time, still working with respect to fiscal sustainability. Looking forward to working with the council on that at your upcoming retreat, but working with city staff on that even as we speak. And my suggestion for all of us is to use that 6-year forecast as sort of our point of reference. I'm not suggesting that all 6 years need to be balanced going forward, but certainly that will illustrate the trajectory that we're on. And it certainly very clearly illustrates the fact that once these one-time monies are utilized to balance the 2026 budget, there won't be there in the future. And those deficits reoccur beginning next year, 2027, and get bigger. And so as we do this work together, that would be my suggestion, that we use that as our frame of reference. We can go through that, test and validate, have a conversation around the assumptions, whether things can be restored to some extent, or and if so, to what extent, how can we do that? Where will the resources come from? So that will be my suggestion. And again, that's a great point of reference for an answer to this question, because it clearly illustrates that after the 2026 budget balance with one-time monies and lots of reductions, for instance, in the jail fees, I see that the recommendation was an increase, which would typically be the case for a jail budget. But instead of including a proposed increase in the 2026 budget, it was flatlined, as you suggested. And so the $300,000 anticipated increase was one of those things that they took out of the recommendation, just as an example. So again, dozens of examples like that, not to that magnitude, but a lot of fine tuning went into making this 2026 budget work based on the challenges and the responses that already were addressed in the 2025 budget. So those are carried forward, and then one-time money and lots of nipping and tucking here and there. And that's how the 2026 budget was able to be presented to you in a balanced fashion.
Other questions? Councilor Ryan.
Thanks. Great to see you, Mike. Welcome back. So along the same vein of having some more information that's helpful for the public and for us to understand as well and to relay to the public, this budget includes an increase of FTEs, but it's more technically just restoring current FTEs to their full FTE level because they had been furloughed last year to help with budget deficit. So comparing last year's this year's budget to next year's budget, although it looks like an increase in FTEs, it's just more of like a restoration of people's hours. So I was hoping we could get, if you have it offhand, that's awesome, but just a number of, I guess I want to avoid the public seeing that we're hiring all these new people, yet we're saying we're in a deficit when that's not actually the case. So I was hoping to get some clarity on that we could share with folks.
My suggestion is let us do that with a little more time and attention so we can give you a complete answer in terms of
Great.
how what's being proposed for next year compares to what was changed last year, because you're exactly right. Almost universally, it's restoring something that was reduced to a greater extent, so not back up to its original level. So we still are looking at less employees to serve the community.
Great, thanks.
Well, I'm going to step in and there's a few things here going through some of my notes that I want to address tonight. We haven't had a conversation in a while, and I think it's really important. And I'll just begin with our library. I mean, this budget does not provide the library services that we need in the city. And so I don't know if is there a specifics that someone's watching? What would be like the one thing that we really need in the library? Hours? Yeah.
The only opportunity to increase, yeah, I think we hear a lot, restore the library or back to full service, and that full service has ebbed and flowed over several years. But the staffing levels they have today, it makes it very difficult to add a lot of hours back or days of the week back into the library. And so it would be additional FTEs to do that. A significant amount of additional FTEs to do that.
Well, I don't want to make the council president show here today, but I'm just going to address a few things that I'm a little concerned, and I think it's really important that we know. Our outreach that we have funded in this budget is at a bare minimum for the needs that we have in our community. And it's disappointing. We have fire stations that need to be replaced 20 years ago. They don't have restrooms for proper restrooms for those that occupy it. Our permitting process, even though I know we have increased it, it's not where it needs to be. We have a lot of needs in our police department, of course. One of them is traffic enforcement that we're hearing a lot. And I know we're getting closer, but we don't have the need, we're not funding the needs for that. And then there's our parks programs. And I want to bring up the pool again. Oop, there, I said it again. But the programs that we're not providing at Cache Park, at Silver Lake Park, at Forest Park, at Legion Park, at Williams Hollow, we have to have a new, we got to buy a new playground. I mean, there is a lot of needs there that isn't funded in this budget. So I just want to go on the record of bringing that up tonight. So I'll just end it at that. So thank you for all that. Any other questions?
I'll add to the conversation and the show. And no, I didn't prepare anything, but I guess I'll just say it out loud, as I think the mayor has said 1,000 times, and we've all said, we are a full service city. And my goodness, I'm sure we're going to be talking again. I mean, I was talking to my family. How are we going to get through this? I do not know. But, we have our own fire department. We have our own library. We have our own parks department. We do it all, folks, and we don't have the money or the revenue to bring it back. And last week, we saw on one of the measures of accountability, our dollar's worth 52 cents. And it's not going up anytime soon. So I'm just, one of those things, I remember when I first got here, I guess I've gotten to that point of my career, where I can talk about back in my day, 8 years ago, we were talking about, are we going to offload the transit? They're doing great now financially, things happened, and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but it's been a few years, transit is not raking in the dough, but we're doing okay. So it doesn't look like we need to let transit go to somewhere else. The library, but transit was a big one, and fire department. I mean, y'all are going to have those conversations again. We're all going to have them again. And I don't know where the money's going to come from, but full service city. And okay, a question that I wanted to piggyback on about the jail fees and indigent defense. And do those monies come from the same pocket? You know, can we use the jail fee money, like if for instance, we don't have to send everybody to jail, can we use that money for indigent defense? Or is that not something
Yes.
that can, okay, so it's in the same budget, because there's general budget and non-general budget, never the twain shall meet. Okay, that's a question that's been answered. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Zarlingo.
I guess one of the things I'll be trying to look closer at, but when I looked at the typical property taxes, the amount for the typical house in the county that supports the Snow Isle Library System, the amount of that was far greater than the amount we asked for last year as a levy lid lift, like by 5 times or something like that. So I guess I think there's always room to be re-examining things. But I would, on the subject of the full service city, I would note that here in Everett, we are funding those things out of general budget, and that in the county, there's a separate line item on your tax statement. I'm not sure a lot of people would look at those, but there are separate line items for that. There are separate line items for fire and so on. So I don't want to be Pollyanna about it. I think the people in Everett are getting a lot of value per tax dollar, and we're going to have to really work hard to see what we can do about that starting immediately for the 2027 budget.
Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. And follow-up to my follow-up about providing more information. I think I know I hear a lot also from constituents about reopening the pool, reopening the library. I think it would be, and I know numbers have changed over time and we have received all that information at some point or another, but I do think it would be helpful when, at least myself, when going to neighborhood meetings and talking about the budget and the cuts that we have made, there's requests of like, let's open the libraries full time but it's hard to have that conversation without a quantifiable number of what does that look like, operating expenses, how many FTEs, and so I think it'd be helpful just for the general conversation of when we talk about restoring our city to be a full service city, not a partial full service city, to know what that goal line looks like. So I think for follow-up information, it'd be helpful to get a ballpark of what does reopening our libraries full-time look like, with the caveat that that's up to the library board to allocate that funding towards those types of services and reopening full-time. And also a reminder to the public of what are the capital expenses needed to reopen the pool and the annual operating expenses, and maybe even our recreation programs as a whole as well, so that I think that conversation with the public would be a lot easier to have when we can quantify what it looks like to provide those services again, and then juxtapose that with what our deficit realities look like, that we need to make up the deficit and then a whole bunch more if we're going to reopen those services full time. So I think that full picture would be really helpful.
And if I may further clarify those, the parameters I was talking about before, where we're looking at $7-ish million worth of one-time money, 5 to 7, that gets us balanced with the current level of service. So yes, I hear what you're saying. Time's of the essence. Let's roll up our sleeves and talk about what we want and what it would cost.
Councilmember Oakley.
And along with that, we have a new interim finance director, because it's kind of difficult to work in a city where people are nitpicking you for a really good job that you're doing. And in order to open the library more hours, you have to get people that are willing to do the work of the social services library. Yes, we have social workers at the library, but we also have librarians at the library. And so getting people that want to work in these really great, relevant jobs and working at a city that you get healthcare benefits, you get, I think, a living wage, most of these jobs, not on council.
But I don't do the work that staff does. And so we need to also appreciate that there are people that are doing all of these jobs for us out there, and we need to make sure that we get people that can stay and want to do it. And so an FTE is a full-time employee, for all of you that didn't know that. That's, 40 hours or more a week. And they do so much more than that. And then overtime costs more. So if you, whatever. So we need to be able to get the funding to not only keep doing what we're doing, but also make people want to stay and have it not be quite so difficult as it has been these past few years, because people are just getting laid off left and right, even if that's not the right term. People choose to leave because we need full-time employees to not be full-time employees anymore. So some grace for the folks that do all of the hard work in all of our departments in this full service city.
Okay, thank you for all your comments and thank you for the conversation. So items, just for the record, 8, 9, and 10. The public meeting will still be open until the third and final reading, which is November 19th. So we'll move on to item number 11, proposed action item. It's been read in the record. Are there any questions or comments from council for item number 11? Okay, moving on to item number 12, Council Bill 2510-63, first reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvements project entitled Evergreen Way Drainage Improvements, Fund 336, Program 051. Third and final reading is December 3rd, 2025. Does council have any questions or comments? Okay, anything from admin on that one? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to action items. And we have item number 13, third and final reading, Council Bill 2510-58, adopt an ordinance amending chapter 10.16 of the Everett Municipal Code to add exposing a minor child to domestic violence. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve Council Bill 2510-58.
Second the motion.
Motion and second's been made. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Okay, with no further business, we are now adjourned.